I'm Tyler. They call me Mr. Trees. And we're at the perfect time right now. Fall is approaching. Fruit trees are getting ready to go dormant.
Yep.
And there's a few things that people screw up every single year. I hear time and time again with different disease pressures and things because they miss this first window that we're entering right now. So if you have like peaches and nectarines, nectarplum, those types of relatives, most of you have probably had peach leaf curl or something similar to it in the past. That's one of the most ornery, toughest diseases to control. And the trick to doing it is the timing. And because we're so lucky to live where we live, we have a lot of different varieties that'll wake up and go to sleep at different periods of time. So it's crucial that you kind of learn what your tree is doing. And the mistake people make is when you're trying to spray and treat peach leaf curl, and we can talk about what we're going to use to treat it in a second. But when your leaves actually start to drop before they have completely fallen is the time where we actually need to start the spray regimen. So everybody always waits until the leaves have already fallen off of the tree completely, and that you've missed the first window to control the problem. So at leaf drop, when you can walk outside and kind of punch or shake your peach tree a little bit, and a few leaves are actively starting to drop. Before they've completely fallen, they're a little yellow, maybe got some shot hole fungus on there, but they're still hanging on the tree, hanging on there. This is when we want to actually start the time to start spraying them. We want to use, you can use an organic copper fungicide. Abonite has an organic copper fungicide that works well. You can use sulfur, which is also an organic product you can use. But anything that's Daconil, there's a varying products that you can use as long as they're listed for peach leaf curl on the label. It'll say peach controls peach leaf curl, kills peach leaf curl. That is an acceptable product to use. But if we miss that first window at shutdown, and the reason why we want to spray it before the leaves fall down in the first place is because when the tree's shutting down, the disease is also shutting down for the winter, trying to prepare for that winter slumber, so to speak. So it's more groggy, it's more susceptible to try to get access to it. So it's extremely valuable. You go out, you learn your tree. Some trees will go to sleep earlier than others. If it's an early season peach, your leaves are going to fall before the later season peaches leaves are going to fall. Nectarplums are still going to hang on a little bit longer than other things. So you need to know when your tree is actively starting to shut down for the winter. And that is the key point. Window number one, I call it window number one, where you're going to spray right then, leaf drop. Then we fast forward a little bit to about Christmas time, first week or two of January, and your tree will be completely dormant and leafless. That's when we want to do our actual pruning. We want to put them on the operating table when they're sleeping. You know, nobody wants to be on the operating table awake, so that's the time where we want to do our pruning, usually our coldest point here. So after we do the prune that same day, I also recommend that's the second window to spray and treat for any of those diseases like peach leaf curl and other things. The sprays will get into the bloodstream of the tree, those wounds. It'll sterilize him, it'll clean him, throw a big blanket over him so he's nice and happy, you know, while he's sleeping, he'll be protected, sanitized and protected. Then there's the third window, and they call this bud swell. When the buds are just starting to get big and swell, and maybe one flower is opened up on the tree and it's just starting to wake up for the spring season, that's window number 3. And that disease that's living inside the tree is also activating, it's stretching its arms, it's a little groggy, and it's susceptible to get its butt kicked a little bit. So that is your third point in time where you want to break out that spray, whatever spray you choose, and you want to spray it. And if you hit that tree at leaf drop, at pruning time, and at bud swell, right on time, you will eliminate peach leaf curl from your life. If you miss one of those windows just slightly, or you mess it up in some way, you're going to live with it for another season.
No pressure.
No, yeah, that's right. So, and it also is kind of a tricky disease too. I'll answer your question 1 second. During the spring, it'll be really bad, and the leaves will be all bubbly, and it'll be all sick looking. And depending on how bad it is, it usually by midsummer to late summer, it goes away. It almost seems like it vanished and your tree is cured, right? And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I don't have it anymore. It's tricking you, and it's kind of going dormant so that you will miss window number 1 on its treatment regimen. So what happens is you think it just goes away, or you've treated it a bunch of times, and then by midsummer it's gone, and you're like, oh, well, it's fine. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And then that's where the mistake happens, is you don't do that additional, treatment for the fall. So don't let it trick you. It doesn't just go away on its own, and it's something that you have to do if you've had it, because the more time and the more progression you allow it, year after year of it just living in that tree, it starts to manifest in the fruit, and the fruit stop developing properly. They start sapping and become inedible, as well as the tree's overall decline will happen with it. So doing nothing is definitely not an option with that family. And if you've had it, don't let it trick you. That's super important. You had a question?
Did you mean we should spray it at all 4 windows?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Let's repeat the question.
Yeah, so she's saying, do we have to spray to all 3 or 4 window points? And yes, you should absolutely.
Which is the 4th? I saw 3.
So you can start a little early. You can do it a little extra. It's 3 windows is the key points. We're at leaf drop, at bud swell. But if you've had it really bad and it's been a few years and you've had a hard time eradicating it, then a couple extra sprays before or thereafter is not going to hurt you at all. It's only going to be beneficial. But at least hitting it on time those 3 times is where you're actually gonna solve the problem. That's a big deal with peaches and nectarines this time of year.
And what do you prefer?
A first spray? I like alternating, actually. I like using a copper and a sulfur.
Okay.
So you can pick one or the other. It doesn't matter. If you're gonna pick one, I would probably pick copper. It's more efficient, you know what I mean, at doing those types of things. But if you can do sulfur, sometimes we have things like peach twig borer and other types of bugs and things that want to overwinter as well. And sulfur is kind of more beneficial because it does bugs and disease.
Okay.
So you can kind of get a twofer using a sulfur product in there as opposed to just using copper, because that's just a fungicide, right? So that's why I like to alternate and use both, because you kind of have your cake and eat it too that way. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead. You first. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the percentage of copper?
So the organic bonide copper fungicide is an organic copper soap, and it's got a really low percentage of copper in there. And you mix just it's a couple ounces in a gallon of water. It tells you how to mix it properly. And then there's the old-fashioned liquid copper that's not an organic certified product. And the percentage of copper, I don't know the exact number on it, but it's almost double or much higher than the organic version. What was that?
Isn't that better?
It is if you have a really bad problem and you've been dealing with it. Me personally, I would go organic style first to make sure that I hit the windows properly using an organic copper, as a preventative or with a healthier tree in general, just to be safe. But if I had something that was really ornery and tough to deal with, that tougher stuff, just like anything else, you know what I mean? Start with good diet and exercise first, and then if you have to break out the medicines, then I would do it that way. But the old-fashioned liquid cop is more readily available. You'll see that easier to buy at the store.
Didn't the federal government shut down the amount of copper, the percentage?
They banned the lime sulfur, but they didn't shut down or change the copper percentage in the liquid cop. So it's been the same for a long time. The liquid cop formula has been the same. They've been pushing the new organic copper soap, which is much lower, dosage. That's been the more push to use that instead. But using it 2 or 3 times throughout the winter time, you're not going to get any copper toxicity or any problems like that. It's not harmful. It's actually a micronutrient for the plant as well. It can get a little bit of absorption of the copper nutrient that way as well from it. So I would prefer using the organic copper soap. It's made by Bonide first. But if you've been dealing with it for a few years and it just seems like you can't beat it, then that's when you would break out the liquid cop, and you can get that at Walter Andersen's or any real nursery, Armstrong, stuff like that. They'll sell liquid cop for sure. Yes.
Okay, I just got a nectarine tree.
Okay.
And it's still in the pot, but if I go home and find out that it's at that first stage, should I spray it before it's in the ground?
You should. You should. Yeah, I would definitely
Let's
spray it.
repeat the question.
Yeah, so she said if she has a nectarine in a pot and it's starting to shut down already, should she spray it now before she gets it planted? And I would say absolutely. I wouldn't plant it with, you know, a potential disease, you know what I mean? And then put it right into my soil first without kind of putting up some sort of a firewall or a barrier first. It's definitely a good idea to spray it first before you go ahead and plant
Outstanding.
it. Absolutely. The pruning, on the pruning aspect of things, I go lots of places and gardeners have been cutting on trees, people have been cutting on trees, and they just kind of cut wherever they kind of feel they need to cut. Number one, you got to learn a little bit about your trees because each type of tree fruits on a different type of wood or an age wood. Example being figs and persimmons. They only fruit on new growth. So technically I could go and cut the tree down to the ground almost or stump it all the way back to nothing, and the new growth that came out that next year would still have potential to put on fruit. Whereas a peach or a nectarine, they only fruit on last year's growth. So whatever growth happens this summer, next year will be your fruiting wood. So if you just go out there and cut all that stuff off, you're cutting off all your fruit wood. You're not going to get any fruit for that following year. And like apples and pears, they fruit on spurs, which take many years to develop on the older wood, and you get a lot more spur development. They can also fruit on the tips, but they like to fruit on the spurs better. It's a better place for them to fruit. So knowing what your tree likes to do, where the fruit is born on the tree, will help you not cut off the wrong stuff so that you have good production. Because I see time and time again, like, I'm not getting any fruit this year. I'm not, and you go there and the gardener has pretty much turned it into a hedge and it's cut off all the fruiting wood, right? And it's like, oh, you don't have any fruit wood. So it's very important to learn a little bit about where your tree wants to produce its fruit. So if you don't know, you can look that up. B, you can, when the fruit is formed this year on your tree, take a close look at it. Look at it, figure out what does that branch look like that fruit is hanging on, and that will tell you what branches you should be looking for to keep on your tree. Secondly is how you cut. I see a lot of the time where, this is an example here, where you got a branch like this on a tree, and maybe it looks like what not big or small, but a gardener or somebody will come up and they want to cut this branch off right here, right? And they'll just go ahead and they'll cut that branch off, and what happens is they leave this little stump or this little stub here. And this little stub will actually die back. So there's a collar. So where this branch meets this branch, there's a little ring right here where they connect. That's called the branch collar. And that's the natural healing point for the tree. So if you cut above that collar like I did here and allowed this little stub here to stay, 9 times out of 10, it's just going to die back to the collar anyway, leaving this little dead stump in your tree, little stub. And then when this starts dying, it's kind of like a runaway train effect too. It'll start to die, then it starts dying into the tissue of the good branch that you wanted to keep originally. So then you end up infecting your other branch there by not cutting it back. Whereas if you just cut up, clean up against the collar there and don't leave any junk left there, that's the natural healing point for the tree. That tree's going to heal that off immediately. You don't have any runaway train effect, and you don't have any dead chunks of wood that borers and fungus and all kinds of stuff want to break down and get you. That's how every time a termite gets into a tree, or a thing, they left a big chunk of dead wood, and you can go out to your house right now, and I can guarantee you if you have fruit trees, you've got a stump or a stub where somebody hacked something off, and at the end of that stump, there's all these holes and destruction and stuff that's happened over a few years period of time. And that's how those bugs actually infiltrate your tree. They're trying to kill that dead wood stump that you left there, that stub pruning, and that will go deep into the tissue of the tree like a runaway train as well. They'll start eating the tissue, more of the tissue of the tree will start to die, and before you know it, this whole limb is bad. Whereas if we just pruned it properly without any snub pruning, you would eliminate a whole bunch of pathogens and pressures that wanted to attack your tree. So I see 100 times where people are walking and all up and down the branch, they got these little inch-long stubs all over their trees and all over their thing, whether it's a tiny little stub or a really big branch stub. stump cut, the trick is to actually don't leave any stumps or stubs on your tree. Always come back to the nice new living tissue of your tree so that there's nothing left there, and whatever you cut back to, that new branch is going to take that energy and run with it, right? It's super, super important, and that will keep a lot of things like shovel borers and termites and various fungal diseases away from you. Yeah.
So what's the difference between a stump and a spur?
So a spur is still alive, number one.
Okay.
And a spur is kind of like it's a wrinkly little branch. It's like, it kind of looks old and wrinkly, and lots of people want to cut those branches off. Spurs form on the branch, like you have a nice branch, and off the branch you'll have these little wrinkly little things that form right off that branch. And those wrinkly little things are usually spurs, especially on apples and pears. Plums can even have spurs and stuff on them. And they're like wrinkly, little, bubbly, old-looking branches that are like sitting on your tree. And a lot of people want to cut those off because they're not like real vigorous and they don't look really, really good, and you know, they look like they're dead. But technically, a spur on an apple tree or a pear can produce fruit in that same place on that same spur forever. As long as air and light are occupied with that, year after year, apples can form on that same spur point over and over and over again. And that little spur will have a little bud on it, or little bubbly things on there, and look, and every year it'll wake up and it will flower only. It'll set a bunch of cluster of fruit right on that little spot, and then you'll be able to harvest it. So, like, a spur is definitely alive, and you can, if you're not sure if it's alive or dead, you can always scratch into the bark too. Just give it a little scratch, and if you see any green at all, you're good to go. If it's brown, you can cut that spur off of there. But spur is usually found on the nice branch that forming off the little bud points off of the nice branch, and they're, especially on apples and pears and stuff like that, they're the magic wood, I call them. They're like, that's where all the activity is going to happen. If you have a tree that has a bunch of good spurs on it, doesn't even have to have a bunch of good branches, just a bunch of good spurs, you're going to have a bunch of fruit that'll produce on there and be really, really, happy with that. Yes?
Do you have any advice on pruning pomegranates?
Yeah, so the trick with pomegranates is they want to be a big bush naturally, which is ornery and kind of annoying. And painful, exactly. And most people will allow that to happen, where you have 50 little trunks and spurs and shoots coming out of the ground right there. And, what I have found is that if you can keep your pomegranate a single trunk by pruning off all those little extra ones, even the bigger ones that have been left there for a few years, because a lot of people will leave a couple of those going.
5 feet away.
That's right, and if you can actually prune it down to a single trunk and focus all that energy into that one single trunk, that one tree, you'll have better production sooner. It'll actually produce better and won't be on it. Because a lot of people will say, oh, my pomegranate flowers, but it doesn't set fruit, or the flowers drop off, or it's a low production and all that. And what my experience has taught me is that when you have a branch that's like 10 years old, and then you have another one that's coming out of the ground right next to it that's 2 years old, and then another one that's 1 year old, they're all trying to do different things. They're all at different stages in their life. So they're not really focused, right? The tree is not focused. It's being pulled in a couple different directions. Whereas if you just single trunk the tree, that tree is all one age, one focus. It's got one job to do, and you're more organized and more ready to accomplish the goal. So number one, if you can, cut out those suckers as they show up. Try to single trunk your pomegranate tree as much as possible. That'll keep it more focused and ready to go. And then pomegranates like to fruit on those end tip whips that come off of there, right? So if you buzz off the top all the time, you're going to screw up a lot of that productivity, right? So within reason, you're going to have to keep it maintained in as short as you possibly can. But it's more selective pruning certain branches that are really big, and maybe cutting some back just to kind of get a size. But really, that whip that grew out this last summer on the tips and on the ends there, that's where a lot of those new flowers are going to want to show up. So you want to try to keep that younger wood that grew out last summer as much as possible, in order to get them to flower and you know, hold the fruit, because they want to set on the end and they'll hang themselves down, and then when they're ready to go, they want to crack open and drop their seeds on the ground. You know what I mean? That's their method of rocking and rolling. So single trunk it, thin it out. It can be thinned out, you know, pretty substantially, you know, to get air and light moving through there. But try not to buzz off all the tips and all the ends of it.
Is that like topping it? Don't
Yeah.
top it.
Try not to do so much of, like, you know, we have to do that every once in a while to keep it, you know,
Is this the time of year
appropriate.
for that one too?
So in December, January, when it's completely leafless, is when we want to prune that. Okay, you can cut the suckers all year long. So like all summer long, when those suckers are popping up, try to get those suckers out of there as you know, all through this whole season. But the major pruning that happens should happen when it's sleeping, and you'll be better off with its overall health. But single trunking it, I believe, like through and through, that focuses the whole tree into one thing, as opposed to being pulled in a bunch of different directions.
Does it hurt a tree that if you see a dead branch, it looks like it's dead and it's full of leaves and all?
Mhm.
Is it bad to trim that when you see that dead leaf,
So
dead branch?
most of the time, it's not. Cutting out the dead wood is not like that big a deal. But like a citrus, for example, right? If we prune citrus, we're going to stimulate new growth to come out of there. And during the summer months, when we have like leaf miner and the Asian citrus psyllid and all those things are in full action, they want that new growth. Like, that's their buffet, right? So when we're cutting that during the summer months on a citrus tree, other trees as well, but when we're cutting it mainly on the citrus tree, we're stimulating new growth that's bringing more buffet to the bad insects that we're trying to avoid, right? So like in that case, I would say you prune it more seasonally. Like, you know, in citrus, it's like March to May is a good time to
Because
prune
they
your
don't lose
citrus
their
time.
leaves, so you don't know when they're going.
That's right. So like after their production cycle is usually the time that you want to do your majority of your pruning. You know, before summer gets here. If citrus, I do not want you to cut them starting like June, like late June through November. Don't cut them any time through there. And what'll happen is you'll want to go out there and cut off all that leaf miner damage that's happening all summer, because it looks really ugly and you're like, oh my God, this looks terrible. But every time you cut that, you stimulate 4 new spots of growth, and those bugs are still active until November, so to speak, and then they're gonna attack all those new sets of growth. Whereas if you just kind of turned a blind eye from like, you know, July to November, and they would keep attacking those crappy little branches that are up here looking all junky, the bugs want the new growth, so they're gonna keep attacking that tip of that crappy branch that you wanted to cut off, instead of attacking all the good stuff that you're leaving for them to attack, right? So if you cut it off early, then your tree gets smaller and smaller and crappier and crappier, and it just like takes in, and you're also cutting off the fruiting wood, because citrus want to fruit on the new growth. So about November is when the temperatures at night are like in the low 50s, and when it's consistently in like the low 50s or below, the leaf miner don't survive here anymore, and they go away for the year. So at that point, you can start cutting the stuff off and cleaning it up and doing all that, you know, jazz to your citrus trees, because then you're not stimulating the new growth for all the bad bugs that are in full swing, you know. So try to avoid cutting your citrus during the peak of the summer months when they look the worst, when all that new growth is, and you'll actually have less leaf miner damage than you would as if you were keeping it clean, and then the new growth comes out and then all that's damaged, and it just always looks crappy, and you feel like you're never winning, you know.
So is leaf miner damage the curly leaves?
Yes.
It's not leaf curl.
Yeah, so it looks like leaf curl because they're all curled up and junky, but leaf miner is like all the new growth that comes out of your citrus is like crinkled and looks really crappy, and it has this little, sometimes you can see this little line that runs through it and this little racetrack that's going through there. That's leaf miner, and it's hard to deal with, but it's, if you kind of outsmart them and like I said, prune in the cooler season, you know, like late, you know, winter through the spring, and then as soon as summer gets here, you knock it off. That's how you're gonna make sure that you have a lot of your tree that's healthy.
Spray for that?
So the problem with leaf miner is it's a little fly. It looks like a little white fly, and it lays its eggs on like the tip and the ends of where your new growth is going to emerge. Before we can even see those little teeny leaves that are trying to wake up and emerge, those eggs hatch and they chew their way inside the leaf. So they're actually inside the leaf, tissue. So you can spray all you want and you're not gonna kill those ones that have made it into the leaf tissue because they're protected by a barrier, right? You can get some of the eggs by spraying them, here and there, which isn't a bad thing. But also in the summertime when they're most active, it's hot. And if you're spraying during that heat, it can actually hurt your tree, depending on what you're doing. You don't want to use oils and stuff like that. You can use stuff like spinosad bacteria. It's called like Captain Jack's dead bug brew, I think is what it's called. And it's basically, it's called spinosad. You know what I mean? It's
Spell that.
S-P-I-N, the letter O-S-A-D, spinosad. And that's a little organic bacteria that you can spray kind of year round on your trees.
Is it oil?
And it's not an oil. It's just a bacteria, which is good. You don't want to use oil during the summertime. So come June through November, no more neem oil, no more all seasons oil, no more castor oil, stuff like that, depending on where you live. Like if you live out where I live, it gets really, really hot. And if you put oil on your leaves, even the day before or at night, it's just gonna cook them like cooking oil. It heats up and it's just really gross. You can use oil in the cool season, in the winter, the spring, stuff like that, no problem. But as soon as summer gets here, I don't recommend using oils on anything because it can be dangerous. But if you really want to spray for leaf miner, you can use the spinosad bacteria or even a sulfur. Sometimes will work pretty well as well, and that'll kill some of the eggs. And it's not going to solve the problem, and it's not going to keep them super pretty, but it'll slow it down to where it's more manageable or bearable, right? I personally don't bother spraying during the summer months because it's like you're not getting 100%, effectiveness, and it's like it's too hot anyway, right? So practicing good care of like pruning at the right time, spraying in more in the cool, the winter, the spring, getting everybody nice and clean. That's when I would recommend spraying your citrus. Dedicate some time in the winter or the spring and spray like once a week for like 4 to 6 weeks in a row. And I would do that every year with your citrus, regardless. Sometime in the cool season, whenever you're home on vacation, you got some time, once a week, depending on what you want to use. You can use anything that you want to use, but I would spray once a week for like 4 to 6 weeks. Kind of like antibiotics, right? If you were prescribed antibiotics, you'd want to take them to the letter of the law till they were done, and then you could discontinue. The reason why is I would love to get last year's problems killed and taken care of before they go to summertime and pick up new problems, right? Then they go to summertime, they pick up their new problems, you bring them home in the fall and the winter time, and you spray them again once a week for 4 weeks, 5 weeks in a row, and then you clean them up, make them nice and perfect, send them to war for summertime. And if you just get in the habit of doing that every year with your citrus, they're not going every year to summertime with last year's problems year after year. You actually like interrupt the system, interrupt
It doesn't hurt the fruit that's forming.
It doesn't. If you use neem oil or something natural, then it's not a problem at all. It's beneficial. Plus, you'll also take care of any Asian citrus psyllid eggs and stuff like that that are gonna devastate our citrus regardless. If anybody doesn't know about Asian citrus psyllid, we'll talk about that too. But,
So I'm just wondering about like the
You're saying spray with neem oil once a week?
yeah, in the winter or the spring, you can use neem oil, you can use spinosad, you can use sulfur, you can use your spray of choice, your insecticide of choice, as long as it's in the cooler season, winter, spring, somewhere in that realm. But I would dedicate a month or a month and a half to once a week spraying on your citrus trees. That way you can make them squeaky clean before next year comes, and then we don't worry about it anymore.
Wash it off though?
You don't have to wash it off in between. Maybe every third spray, go ahead and wash them off. Like spray them 2 or 3 times in a row to make sure that it's sticking there and it's staying there and it's suffocating, especially if you're using neem oil. That needs to suffocate stuff. So if you're washing it off every week, you're only giving it a week to suffocate something, and some things might be a little tougher or harder to deal with. So give it a couple weeks in a row.
So you gotta watch the rain.
And then spray it off, and then reapply a couple more times. And I think that's a little more effective that way.
Sticky trees on people's.
Yeah, it can be sticky if you're using neem oil. You can use spinosad or sulfur, and it's not sticky at all like neem oil is, you know. But the trick is once a week. That's where everybody goes wrong and misses it, you know.
So I'm just worried about the life cycles of the beneficial insects.
Yes, that's something.
So
yes.
My tangerine tree has a wonderful, in the marine layer mornings, I'll come with a little bit of mist of the hose to just get the dust off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see the lacewings.
The lacewings flying. Yep.
And I'm just like stoked because there they are and taking
Totally.
care of business. So I don't want to.
So that's like number one. Spinosad, the stuff that I was talking about, can hurt some beneficials.
Yeah.
Okay, so it will hurt, like, it can hurt bees, it can hurt other things if you're spraying them directly or if there's a bunch of flowers. So I would never spray in full flower, regardless, because there's more beneficial things visiting the flowers. So try not to spray during the flower time. Number two, if you don't have a huge problem, then you know you can tread a little lighter on that aspect. But then things like neem oil and stuff, unless you're soaking those lacewings, you're not going to kill the lacewings with the neem oil, right? Neem oil is a suffocant, so it's only going to really harm things that can't move very fast. Scale, aphids, you know, mites, little things that are small and don't really move very fast. So it gets on top of them and suffocates. What you can do for your little lacewing population is go out there, spray down the tree with some water, get them to scatter, and then spray.
Right.
And then, you know, you're totally good. You're doing your part there, and you're also preventing a problem that's possible on your trees.
The only thing I see is white flowers sometimes. So I
Yeah.
do that, yeah.
So, and those guys can be killed with a neem oil or something like that with a once a week spray. But that's something you kind of like, you know, you've got to kind of scare them away a little bit. Sometimes I'll go out and shake the trees, you know what I mean? Shake them and have those lacewings fly off. And then I'll apply, and lacewings, ladybugs, all that stuff usually isn't harmed, you know, by those oils or those lesser.
And then we can look for when their eggs are on the leaves sometimes and just avoid that.
Yes, you can avoid that in certain seasons. That'll be more prevalent than others. But not spraying completely and relying on the beneficials to do your job is a dangerous course of action too, because they're not going to do enough to actually stop a major problem when it's happening. They're going to help you, but with citrus and cultivated fruits, like if we don't do nothing and treat them like jungle trees, then you know that's where our crop and our tree will suffer in some aspects, right? We need to be a farmer a little bit with the things we're trying to grow for food, as opposed to other things that you know what I mean can kind of hang out on their own. But I would spray them off, kind of scare them off a little bit. Use something like neem oil or something that was less toxic. You know, there's a product called Organicide, which is like sesame oil and fish oil, and it's like really cool. Works like a neem oil. It's like an oily product, but it's actually pretty inert, you know, which is nice. Or a neem oil is from the neem tree, and it doesn't. Neem oil has azadirachtin or whatever that big word is in it that can kind of disrupt certain things in the insects, but that Organicide does not, right? Which is nice. So that's even more friendly, and that'll even say friendly for the bees and the beneficials on the label a lot of times as well. So you'd want to choose something like that, scare them away, and you know, dedicate it. And plus, in the dead of winter, there's less of them active at that point in time as well. So spraying in the winter time, when there's less happening, everybody's dormant or dead or haven't woken up for springtime, is probably a better choice too, because springtime when everything's active, summertime when everything's in full swing, yeah, you're going to hurt more beneficials at that period in time for sure.
Question about pruning. I have two.
Yes.
I have two plums.
Okay.
One green gauge and one Santa Rosa.
Okay, cool, great ones.
Bunch of little, I guess, tiny little sticks come out of main branches.
Uh-huh.
How many main branches should I have? What should I do with these tiny little branches that come out?
Okay. So with trees that lose their leaves in the wintertime, peaches, plums, nectarines, cherries, those types of things, we definitely want to do more of an opening of the canopy a little bit more. Avocado, citrus, mangoes, we don't want to do that. We don't want to clean those out as much. They want to be dense and nasty. But for your plums and stuff like that, we want to groom somewhere like 4 to 5 nice main scaffold branches that are coming out of the tree. And then all those extra little shoots and stuff you can kind of clean out of there. Then off those little scaffold branches, you'll have these little barbs that come off of there. And they're like actually like thorns. They almost are like thorny things. Those are spurs. Those you want to keep as much as possible. on those old branches. So you have this big old branch, you have this little barb that comes out of here, barb that comes out of here, barb that comes out of here, barb that comes out of here. That's where a lot of those flowers are going to be born on those plums. So you don't want to go cutting off a lot of the barbs that actually are kind of like a thorn. But all the little teeny little branches that are ripping off of there that are really young, you can thin those down and allow some of those to be in there, especially if they're got a lot of bud points on them. And some branches, you'll notice, will have like they'll have little buds on there, but they won't be like these swollen bud points that are on there, and those branches will usually be a lot longer and more aggressive growing. And then you'll have shorter branches that are, a foot to 2 feet long that are really bubbly and budded up. Those ones also can produce fruit. So I honestly would say get 4 to 5 good scaffold branches that are like your structure of your tree. Then off of your scaffold branches, I would leave all the little spur barbs that are on those little branches that you can. Just don't cut off any of those. And then the secondary branches that are a little bit longer and bubbly, I would thin those out to, if there was a cluster of 5, I probably would leave 2, down to 2. And
When should I expect fruit from these? These have been in the ground for 5, 6, 7 years.
you should have already been having fruit on them. So that means you're probably cutting off the wrong stuff that's producing your fruit. And usually the case with plums and stuff is we're cutting the wrong things that actually are the productive wood in favor of the more vigorous branches. And the more vigorous branches are they're like teenage kids who want to get into trouble, and they just want to grow and cause a ruckus, whereas those little wrinkly branches and the branches that look like you should be cutting them off are actually where your fruit is going to be born, right? So try not to take those little branches and stuff as much off as get rid of all those really vigorous branches that are shooting off all over the place, right? And then secondly, with plums especially, during the middle of the summer, after they're done producing, even if yours aren't producing, but August, right? It's like we're towards the end of summer, you'll have all these branches that are shooting straight up to the moon, right?
Yes.
Way out of pickable range, all that stuff. Vigorous trees that do that are early season fruiters, that should have already been done fruiting by now, about August, we should go out there and just knock the tops off with all those branches. Because what that does, we call that summer pruning, and it's not anything in particular or special or anything. It's literally just cutting the tops of those really vigorous branches off and bringing it back down to where a pickable level is for you or close to it. That tells the tree, it almost goes into panic mode. It's like, whoa, I just grew all this stuff all summer long and you just cut it all off, right? And it knows it doesn't have enough time before fall and winter are here, so it starts swelling and making budwood right at that pickable range. Instead of, if you just let them just grow to the moon all summer long and then waited for winter time, you're going to end up cutting all that fruit wood off because all the fruit wood gets put into those tips and those higher points, right? So a lot of time that's what will happen. We'll just allow that tree to grow all year and we'll wait until winter time and then we end up pruning it and we end up pruning off all the work that the tree did to produce fruit for that year, right? Whereas if we just did a summer pruning in August, early September, for the vigorous trees that are shooting straight up, knock them down, make them go into panic mode, and then it sets fruit wood at this pickable range where we just knocked it down at. It still has 2 months or so to work on that. Then you have better production that next year, right where you want to pick it. So try to keep more of the wrinkly branches and the spurs. Do a summer pruning if they're growing up to the moon like crazy. That'll also help you. And if you're still not getting fruit, you want me to come take a look and coach you on it, we can do that. But they should, within year 3, 2 or 3 being planted, a green gage, a Santa Rosa, they should be fruiting for you. You should be getting something on them.
You never mentioned
Guaranteed.
apricots. You haven't mentioned apricots.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about apricots. So apricots are similar to the plums where they have those little barbs all over them. And you want to prune them the same way where you have 5 or 6 little scaffolding branches.
Okay.
Leave your barbs that are forming on those older branches. And then apricots are real early season. So they benefit from a summer pruning like I was just talking about. They will grow really crazy and they'll benefit from that during the summertime. But they're more ornery at production-wise around here.
I have no apricots.
Yeah, and so the biggest deal with apricots is if you go to the nursery and you want to buy an apricot, or you go to Home Depot or wherever you buy your trees, they'll always sell you a gold kissed or a Katy. Because on paper, when you look at the paper, the chill hours and all those things line up to our area perfectly. But the gold kissed and Katy apricots are not good producers here. They don't want a fruit. They are ornery. They'll grow really vigorously. They'll be beautiful trees, but they just will not produce very well at all. And if you have, I wonder how many of you actually have a gold kissed or a Katy. Does it produce very well? No, doesn't. Yeah.
So what?
Same thing, right? It's that is a common thing, right? So variety of apricot is really important. Tropic Gold, the old-fashioned Royal Blenheim are pretty good. Tropic Gold is the most consistent in our climate here. It's one of my favorite varieties of apricot to plant. It's called Tropic Gold. Also Royal Rosa is another one that does really, really well. But the Katy and the Gold Kiss, that's the one that you're gonna buy at every nursery. They always buy 100 of them. It makes me crazy. It makes me insane because I go hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of places and they're like, my apricot never produces, but it grows really well.
Yeah.
Is it a Gold Kiss or a Katy? They're like, actually it is. And I'm like, okay. So we end up changing those Gold Kiss and Katys by grafting a Tropic Gold or Apriums or other stuff to it because they've had this tree for 7, 8, 9, 10 years and they've gotten like a handful of fruit off of it, right? Whereas that Tropic Gold will produce every season. It's less alternate bearing and it loves our climate a lot better, flowers at a better time, and will give you tons of fruit like from day one. I grafted a Tropic Gold on a Blenheim. It was a Tropic Gold on a Katy apricot this past year, and the little, like 1.5 foot long graft after it grew, that summer had 10 fruit on it from the Tropic Gold. She couldn't believe it. That was the most fruit she's ever had on this tree, and she had it planted for like 7 years, right? So it has a lot to do with variety, but also proper pruning, the way that I said, will encourage you to get better fruit.
So it doesn't need a cold chill then?
It's less chill than anything. You know, so just as like a quick side note, chill hours used to be considered hours below 45 degrees. And then at the new Irvine test station, they found out that a lot of trees can actually accrue chill up to 55 degrees. So we have a lot of 55-degree days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is why, like, in La Jolla, like, there's Fuji apples and Granny Smith apples that I see that have no business growing there according to the chill chart. But they actually get more chill than we realized. So it's less chill hours and it's more variety and it's more pruning technique that is anything with that.
I have a question for you.
So yeah,
Will you be able to stay a little later to answer questions?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you guys, I have to thank him. Let's all thank him and then